So they come together in this dinner. In some respects, it's the most banal of all things, right? Everybody's come to dinner. But everybody comes to dinner from their own world. You know, the little ones who come from having been playing outside, the teenagers who are becoming more and more intimate, and Minna loses her brooch, which is, again, an interesting symbol of about to lose her innocence or her virginity. Mrs. Ramsey wants them to be coupled. The older folks having their own, everyone's in their own world. And they come together, and Mrs. Ramsey is a world maker. She's going to make this world work around food and around drink and around the establishment of a kind of intimacy or civility that might lead to intimacy. Now, you know, Mr. Ramsey might be at the edge of the table thinking, gosh, that is such nonsense. It's not really intimacy. Everybody's got their own world. Everybody's, you know, doing their own thing, and he can show that it really isn't connected. And Mrs. Ramsey is making the connection. She's not trying to show it, deduce it. She's making the connection. And she gets Lily to play nice. she gets people to play nice. And from one perspective, you can say she's creating an illusion. But no, what she thinks she's creating is real. That's the question of the novel. Is this an illusion or is it real? It's real because she makes people pay attention to each other, to enweb one another in a circle of affection and connection. At the end of the dinner, she's sitting there reading, as you'll recall. Mr. Ramsey comes and sits next to her, Mr. Ramsey wants her to say, I love you, remember? Mr. Ramsey is desperate to have Mrs. Ramsey say, I love you, and they're in the reading room, and the reading is actually Shakespeare's Sonnet 98. But what's important here is that Mrs. Ramsey doesn't want to have to actually say words that declare who she is and how she feels. She wants him to feel her love through intimacy, not through language. She's got her needle. She's doing her sewing, and Mr. Ramsey, needs this reassurance from her. She feels him looking. This is on page 123, just before the section of the book called Time Passes. He says to her something like, "You won't finish that stocking tonight." She says, "No, I won't. I shan't finish it," she says. And what then? For she felt that he was still looking at her, but that his look had changed. He wanted something, as men tend to in Virginia Woolf novels. He wanted something, wanted the thing she always found it so difficult to give him. Wanted her to tell him that she loved him, and that no, she could not do. He found talking so much easier than she did. He could say things she never could. So naturally, it was always he that said the things. It was always he that said the things. And then for some reason, he would mind this suddenly, and he would reproach her. A heartless woman, he called her. She never told him that she loved him. But it was not so. It was not so. It was only that she could never say what she felt, Mrs. Ramsey. Was there no crumb on his coat? Nothing she could do for him? Getting up, she stood at the window with the reddish-brown stocking in her hands, partly to turn away from him, partly because she remembered how beautiful it often is, the sea at night. But she knew that he had turned his head as she turned. He was watching her. She knew that what he was thinking. You are more beautiful than ever. And she felt herself very beautiful. Will you not tell me, just for once, that you love me? He was thinking that, for he was roused. What with Minta and his book, and it's being the end of the day, and they're having quarreled about going to the lighthouse. But she could not do it. She could not say it. Then, knowing that he was watching her, instead of saying anything, she turned, holding her stocking, and looked at him. And as she turned at him, she began to smile. For though she had not said a word, he knew. Of course he knew that she loved him. He could not deny it. Even he could not deny it. And smiling, she looked out of the window and said, thinking to herself, nothing on earth can equal this happiness. Yes, you were right. It's going to be wet tomorrow. You won't be able to go. And she looked at him smiling. for she had triumphed again. She had not said it, yet he knew. Even Mr. Ramsay knew. She had not said it, yet he knew. That's what's real. A love that doesn't have to be spoken in words. And that's what's shattered in the next section of the book, right? That's the romantic ending of this first section. In the next section, time passes, where you basically leave all the people seem gone, except for small parentheses. Time passes, and it is this downpouring of immense darkness. This downpouring of immense darkness. And of course, that is World War I. That's what time passes is about. The whole family, the whole of Europe, the whole of Virginia Woolf, civilization is disrupted. Ezra Pound said, put it this way, there died a myriad, and of the best among them, for an old bitch gone in the teeth, for a botched civilization. That's Pound on World War I. World War I cannot be overestimated in its catastrophic importance for European culture. In single battles, like the Battle of Verdun, hundreds of thousands of people are killed. In the Battle of the Somme, hundreds of thousands, one battle lasts a long time. Hundreds of thousands are killed. Millions, between 10 and 13 million people die in battle in World War I. In some countries like France, 6 out of 10 people of fighting age will be killed or wounded. Everyone knows people whose lives are shattered. 74 million people were mobilized in World War I. And right after the war, as you probably know from other classes you've had or just other reading you've done, in 1918 to 1919, there's an influenza epidemic that kills even more people. Some say twice as many as the war did. And so all of these concerns about what is real, what is intimacy, love, connection, all of a sudden, they seem shattered by this act of violence that was so senseless. Virginia Woolf's friends tended to be pacifists. They didn't want to fight, but most of Europe was happy to go off to war, it seemed. They were enthusiastic. They went off to war. They took their poems with them. They thought it was going to be brief and glorious, and it was ugly and dirty and disgusting and served no real purpose, it seemed. World War I completely changed Europe's position in the world, undermining it forever, I think it's fair to say, or undermining the position it had had. And if you're a colonized person and you were under the thumb of European domination, you may say, and a good thing too. But for European culture, for the things we're studying, what it did really, World War I, was to make apparent how the pursuit of the traditional questions, even those of the Enlightenment, was no protection against the insane brutality of violence and war. In the end of To the Lighthouse, this subject is dealt with obliquely, to be sure. What's left? What remains after the war? As Lily says, and when she reflects, she's back on the coast with what's left of the Ramsay family. Afterwards, she reflects about that the mirror is broken, she says, that there's no point in walking on the beach and looking for an epiphany about the meaning of life or about how things hold together. There's no point in trying to make all of these connections universally, that nothing seemed capable of the kind of coherence people dreamed about before this awful, awful outbreak of violence. On 161 in the novel, Virginia Woolf has Lily say, as she thinks about life and art, she finally looks around and says, "What is the meaning of life?" That was all, a simple question. What is the meaning of life? A simple question. One has tended to close in on with this question with the years. The great revelation had never come. The great revelation perhaps never did come. Instead, there were little daily miracles, illuminations, matches struck unexpectedly in the dark. Here was one, there was the other. Matches struck unexpectedly in the dark. That's really what's left for Virginia Woolf at the end of this novel. is you get points of connection, points of illumination, but you don't get is the great revelation. So at the end, James and his sister are in the boat with their father, going out to the lighthouse finally. They're filled with hatred for their father, but they also have this experience of love. They know he's tyrannical. They know he's a caricature of a man in many respects, but he is their father. And they can't help but feel the pull of love toward him. As James reflects toward the very end of the novel, things are never just one thing. The lighthouse isn't just one thing. The lighthouse is both just a mere lighthouse, and it's also a symbol. His father is a tyrant, and he's also his daddy. Also the man that loved his mother. Things are never one thing. Another important conclusion at the end of the book. On page 191, the beginning of chapter 11, so much depends then, thought Lily Briscoe, looking at the sea, which had scarcely a stain on it, which was so soft that the sails and the clouds seemed set in blue. So much depends, she thought, upon distance, whether people are near us or far from us. For her feeling for Mr. Ramsay changed as he sailed further and further across the bay. People are never one thing. Lighthouses are never one thing. They are different things to us depending on our distance to them, depending on our connectivity with them. This is what the lesson that Lily comes to at the end on 193 towards the end of the very end of the novel. What was the problem then? She must try to get hold of something that evaded her. This is Lily thinking as she makes her painting. It evaded her when she thought of Mrs. Ramsay. It evaded her now when she thought of her picture. Phrases came. Visions came. Beautiful pictures. Beautiful phrases. But what she wished to get hold of, here's our key, what she wished to get hold of was that very jar on the nerves. The thing itself before it had been made anything. Get that and start afresh. Get that and start afresh, she said desperately, pitching herself firmly against her easel. She wanted to get hold of the thing itself, that very jar on the nerves. Notice almost the reference back to Kant, right? The thing in itself, Kant said. She wants to get the thing before we make it into something else, before we distort it with our conception, before we distort it with our categories. She wants to get at it, that very jar on the nerves. Not because it gives you the really real, not because it gives you a foundation, not because it gives you the meaning of life. It's just a small match in the dark. It's just some connection, some feeling of intimacy that is precious, that is a good in itself. To go back to G.E. Moore, it's a good in itself. It doesn't hang together with everything else. So at the end of the novel, Lily wants, from ordinary experience, to feel that very jar on the nerve. She's not looking, as was Virginia Woolf, Virginia Woolf was not looking for some ultimate meaning or some ultimate foundation, but looking for a genuine connection through a feeling that was could be represented, could be articulated through art, and just like a feeling could be articulated through intimacy, not deduced, not explained, but felt, powerfully felt. That's what we had to hold on to after time passes, after catastrophe, these little matches of connection. We'll build on that, I hope, next time when we turn to Wittgenstein and talk about how Wittgenstein also turned his attention to the everyday, to ordinary language, not for the ultimate meaning of life, but to understand how we actually use language in ordinary life. See you then.